Hey everybody, welcome to Forge Narrative. This is our Monday Night Live webcast where it's basically been all Space Marine all the time, since we got these releases. What's going on? Happy Monday. I know I get the rage. Yeah, when somebody says that to me at work. But we're not at work right now. It's chill time.
Yeah, man. What you guys been up to?
Well, this weekend I played some games. I did a couple of ATC test games, which is always nice. I dig the missions. I dig the format. The game I'm playing Eldar. That's the list I was playing. I was playing against someone that was running a variant of the Super Friends list. Now, everyone can breathe whatever life they want into it. This guy was not. He was only playtesting it. This wasn't his list. He was doing it specifically to play something I might encounter at the tournament, and it was a good list. We played the kill point mission. And
that's my favorite.
I rolled my psychic powers and got jag nothing. When I say jag nothing, I mean not even a single castable power, that was relevant to anything. I did get psychic shriek and horrify, so getting those combos on things I was able to do. That was the only trick I had. I got no invisibility. I got no protect. I got no fortune. I got none of that. It was, I knew I had my work cut out for me, but eye on the prize, played the mission. Jet bikes move really far.
You don't say.
Groundbreaking. You heard it here first, guys.
That's right. Hey, click here. Jet bikes move really far. Find out how far.
Super far.
I kid. But anyway, that's what actually got me keeping in the game was just, doing some kind of creative deployment to make him think out, far in advance about where he wants to be, but I'm going to go somewhere else, and that's where it was, and so it made him spread out. So my Wraith Knight was marked for death, 1 unit of jet bikes was marked for death. Sorry, 2 units of jet bikes were marked for death, and my Wraith Knight was marked for death. Now, before you say anything, he's thinking that I have to do something with my Wraith Knight, and most of the time that's going to be the case. You have to do something with the Wraith Knight because it's a lot of points wrapped up. It's a power piece. It can get work done. So what I decided to do was stick him way in the corner, and then my Seer Council was way in the other corner. So he's got to choose where he goes to start trying to put effects on things. And that eventually got him kind of spread out. And so I'm able, when I do engage the Wraith Knight, it's on the very edge, and I'm only fighting a couple of Marines. Those Marines had Power Fist and stuff like that. But when there's only 2 Marines with Power Fist, the Wraith Knight is basically going to win that. And then you start a war of whittling down and movement and initiative and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you gotta be tactical like that. Other times you've gotta take those big units you've got and push up with them. Be aggressive. I watched a game battle report yesterday. This guy lost 2 Wraith Knights, both of them because he threw them piecemeal at a Khorne Lord of Skulls.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. You would expect that the Wraith Knights would just dominate that because they were the melee Wraith Knights. They had the sword, so it was a D swords swinging at initiative 5.
That's better, yeah.
So he throws 1 Wraith Knight in, and unsupported, whiffs his rolls to hit, even with the Master Crafted, and then all of a sudden, you've got this Khorne D weapon that's coming in and basically doing the work. And if he had gone in with both of them, that thing wouldn't have even gotten to swing.
That's important. Yeah. With this situation though, with it being a kill point mission where my Wraith Knight is marked for death, you can't be too cavalier with him because that objective in that mission is huge. And if both people lose their 3 units that are marked, then nobody is getting the points. Or it's a draw anyway. And you're trying to score points for your team and the team environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely that's the layered tactics like we talk about on the podcast when it comes to the ATC. And I think it's something that the ATC really has the only trademark on so far as that kind of a level. What am I doing with my list that affects my whole team? Because usually if you're doing a team event, that means you got 2 guys on the table at the same time.
Yep, yeah. Very true. It's a great experience at the ATC. If you haven't gone yet and you don't plan on going this year, make plans to go next year and start planning now, because it's difficult to get 5 people all committed to going and doing something like that, but it's worth it. It is such an experience. The overall games, the atmosphere of the event, very well worth it. Check it out at whatc.org, I think, something like that. Dice Head Games. Just put it on. You can probably find it on there.
Yeah.
Worth going to.
Hey, well, why don't we do some shout-outs? I don't think we've shouted anyone out yet.
Nope, I've been running my mouth. I apologize. We got Max from Hellfire Painting, Lamont, Bill Costello, Kelly K. Good to see you. Lou, Steve Booley, Mike Horner, Dan. Thanks for joining in. Saying he's finally starting to paint his Renegades and Heretics. You're talking about from the IA-13? Let me know what you're running in that. That book has got it all. It's such a fun book to play out of because of all the different ways you can build the list. I was surprised to see the new Varax books also, how it basically borrows that. So you've got that. I think we're going to see that going forward in Forge World quite a bit.
Yeah, I was pretty happily surprised getting that when I picked up my Varax book. I was able to just pop in, look at it's more or less the same list. Some of the character profiles, and what was neat about this was some of the character profiles are borrowed as well, but it specifically says if you're using him in this format, you have to use him in the Varax rules. So you have 2 different versions of characters, which represents them at different stages in the timeline of the story that's being told with them. And I thought that was a pretty neat clarification. Usually, aren't we used to having about 5 or 6 different versions of rules for the same guy out from Forge World all the time? Am I wrong in that?
There typically are at least 2 somewhere in production, I guess.
Yeah, Chaos feels that a lot, especially with the Greater Brass Scorpion. It's in 4 different books sometimes. You're like, which rules do I use? And it gets complicated.
Jumped in. Devin and Gabriel, Son and Gav, good to see you guys. Gabriel, yep, I'm going with Robin, Kenny, and Juicer, our man Ender, for the ATC team. Of course, they're going to be pushing for the victory again. This is a crew that we pulled down 2 ATC wins with. For the most part, our 5th is typically a little fluid, but again, it goes back to saying that, playing your teams now, because sometimes everybody doesn't make it to the finish line. And this is an interesting year, with all these codex releases, that it's going to be hard to say what's going to be there exactly. But I think we got a good handle on it, especially if you look at the most recent issues. I'm taking Eldar. I'm taking a Seer Council for the most part. I would be taking, with the way they do their force organization, is that you only get 2 detachments. And so I'm taking a Combined Arms Detachment in LR and the Seer Council. And I've had a lot of success with that. It's been very fun to play, when it works. When you get a good selection of powers, you can kind of play differently. I don't like playing as cagey as it can do it, but it's one of the lists that can play the cagiest. So if you simply can't engage your opponent, then you might still be able to win the mission by moving around a lot.
Well, I think that's good too, Paul, just for the sake of expanding your tactical versatility. You usually like to play the Death Stars, the Beat Face list. You usually got this big hammer, you have to shove in people's wherevers and do some work that way. And understanding how these other lists operate, I found has helped improve my games, knowing, okay, if I'm facing this kind of list, I know exactly what this guy needs to do, and I know exactly how to stop it.
Right, and there's a couple of archetypes as far as personalities go. And I don't mean real personalities. I mean just what you're trying to do with your models. And one of those things is being the bully. Pushing your big pieces, like you were talking about before, just in the face of your opponent and saying, "What are you going to do about it? I'm going to keep shoving and keep shoving and keep shoving, and you can't stand up to me." And then there's the kind of the carrot and stick. Like the Eldar do is come over and get me. Come over and get me. Nope, I'm not there anymore. Doing the rope-a-dope and the quick jabs.
All the 40K psychologist people.
Hey, it plays into it. It's if you've got this big army, say you're taking a big Death Star, and you don't fully commit to that strategy, your opponent is going to capitalize on it. They're going to get, let's just say, in a lot of armies, if they get just even one more round of shooting on you, you're dead. You're done.
Oh yeah.
All right. If you don't put your piece, your linchpin in the right spot, and somebody's able to get in an angle on you and just gut the center of your unit out, you're out of there. You've got to play your role with the army that you're using. I hope does that make any sense? I don't know.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, because there's this, the way that you position your models with Super Friends is just as important as the models that you take in your Super Friends, because if you don't know how to structure the unit, the layout of the unit, and put those high threat models where you need to be, either to be ready to split off or to soak up the hits that this list is designed to take, then you all of a sudden are opening yourself up to losing a lot of that effectiveness very quickly by someone who's smart enough to look at that list and see, this is what I need to kill first, or by killing this I can prevent him from doing this.
It's the ultimate bubble wrap. You have to make sure that you're protecting your key elements with specific flanks and stuff. You got to really engage your enemy, but you have to also know how your enemy can engage you back in the following turn. And if you don't have enough storm shields on one side, or you don't have that 2-up stalwart dude in that front flank, man, that can ruin your day. So exactly what you're saying, man. The positioning is everything with Super Friends.
Sonic Gav's he made a point about the Calexis. We're probably going to see more of it. So, the game, I mean, we say that, but then there's cycles. It's like there'll be a vein where we get a Calexis where it's needed, and then it loses fashion as people start playing something different, or maybe you don't run into that tier council anymore or whatever. But with the Librarius Conclave, the Calexis, is pinging on people's radar again.
Yeah, he's real good. You could drop him in, shut down all those powers, soak up all those warp charges too, which is real nice, because then you actually have something to shoot back with. A lot of people sleep on that and forget that once he does that, he gets to shoot. That's kind of cool. You're engaging in other phases.
As kind of a side note, he is like the Calexis Assassin is basically the reason why we can never make a sideboard tournament. Like, if there was a sideboard tournament where you could sideboard 500 points or whatever, you'd always just include the Calexis Assassin. Everyone would have a Calexis Assassin.
Yeah, I don't need him this game. Well, let me just put him on the back burner.
Every time, you got that? There you go.
Yeah.
Calexis Assassin. What are you going to do? Everyone would have one no matter what. It would be Flesh Tearer's Attachment, Calexis Assassin. That's what would be in every one.
Man, I was playing for the high score, for the last couple days here, testing out new theories, new things. Man, I just did not really truly grasp how cheap that Flesh Tearer's Attachment could be. Like, if you want it to be cheap, that thing is dirt cheap.
Man, with, of course, building Death Stars and that kind of stuff. And I posted one up, I think it went yesterday morning or it might have been Saturday morning on Facebook, using Samael and the Raven Wing.
I love that.
With the Flesh Tearer's Attachment. Now, nobody takes him for Gabriel Seth. I put Dante in that, all right?
Yeah.
And the Black Knights with Dante and Samael, just straight angels of death, making a super Death Star that, with the Librarius Conclave, that can break out into nine units. It has Space Wolves or whatever. I understand that I've done a very bad thing, and I apologize, because I know that Space Wolves and Dark Angels don't get along together.
Hey, when they got to, they will.
But yet they're battle brothers, right? They work together. They did. They work together. They will work together. But it's one of those things. It's like I really lost sight of it. I was just building for power. I didn't build fluff.
I've got a buddy who actually used to team up Space Wolves and Dark Angels, and he would play out on the table before the game started between the two HQs, and whoever won was his warlord.
That's dedication.
He was fluffy like that.
That's nice. But someone pointed out in the Facebook chat, we post these lists up and encourage some back and forth or whatever, and when I put a list out there, that's just the best I could do right then and there. And I look forward to to feedback. I'm not saying it's the gospel and you got to live it. I want to hear what you think about it. And somebody came in, and this is like, I didn't even recognize this, but in the Black Knight command, the Ravenwing command squad, there's a banner, and the banner allows you to auto pass your hit and run. And really the only difference in between...
That seems good.
Yeah, I fail hit and run all day, every day. Like, I mean, basically it, you know. And so, but what it also gives you an extra D6 when you're rolling those hit and runs. So you could be even more movement. The drawback is that you have less people. You can't get the full 10-man squad. And what I had in mind was having the big 10-man squad, taking a priest to get Phil Pain that way out of the Blood Angels Flesh Tearers, and then 20 twin-linked plasma shots.
Yeah. Oh my good lord.
Yeah, those are the guys with like the plasma talons or whatever they're called in front of the bikes.
Yeah. 18-inch rapid-fire plasma guns.
Seems good.
Oh my lord, that's what that is.
Yeah, I mean, that kills flyers, that kills demon princes, that kills most tanks. That puts a hurting on. You know, let's talk about you're fighting other super friends or whatever. When you start adding in the Librarius Conclave, you open up some very, very weak flanks on yourself because your unit gets big. It gets very big, and you're not able to put your big tank characters on every flank.
Yeah.
You know, so you open it up to where you've got a Tech Marine that doesn't have an invulnerable really. You know, outside of the Jinx. I'm not saying you know that kind of stuff, but you know, with just some psychics on your side or whatever, and auspex or whatever, you're going to take out huge just chunks of these other big units with 20 plasma gun shots.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
Well, you got to think. You know, when you're shooting into that, say you're shooting into Thunder Hammer Storm Shields, instead of getting that 2-up save, now they're having to take a 3. You're adding in more of a chance of them dying now. So that, I mean, it's all about statistics, you know.
The thing I like about the plasma talons is that anything that we currently see in the game en masse, you know, they do significant damage to, and this means even hitting things in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, 50 last gun, what you call it, IG dudes, that hurts. You know, 10 of them don't, but 50 of them definitely can start making you roll some dice. The more dice you can make me roll, the more chance I have of not getting the numbers that I want to see. And that's...
Cable's got a question. Sorry, Justin. Is that are Nova and Beam psychic powers witch fires? And then Kelly's like, yes, they are witch fires. The Beam, I think it may act differently. Chris, if you want to get that in the rule book to see how the Beam works, a Beam attack would work. I want to make sure I get that. Yeah, I do not cast many beams, but you know, you never know. It comes up.
I miss the old Jaws.
Lamont, I apologize that I can't Chromecast the Hangout. I was just as soon as I saw that comment come up, I was like, oh, do I have a little icon? I'm actually using this in Google Chrome right now. No, you can't Chromecast it. They should fix that.
Huh. I'm using Chrome, but I don't even know what that means. So
the Chromecast is awesome. You get to stick it in one of the HDMI slots on the TV and then broadcast what's on your computer screen to your big screen.
So I can read better? Are you kidding?
Yeah, you might be able to. Yeah.
I need that in my life.
Yeah, Lou's saying that I get a pass with the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels as long as I don't do Korn and Slanesh together. Yeah, and Kelly K, I do. I like Death Star on Death Star conflict because it comes down to who's the better with it, you know. And so I really like it's almost kind of a grapple match, you know. And I do kind of like that style of play. I'm not gonna lie, it typically comes down to who has the most strict 10 AP1 attacks. And I run mine a little light, so I've got to be a little bit cagey. I've got to do these things like I've got to capitalize on your movement errors. I don't want to say mistakes, but because you know it's all relative, but I've got to capitalize on something.
You got to get that third priest in there. That's all there is to it.
So with Samael being an Eternal Warrior character, adding in Dante Eternal Warrior, and then going out to the Iron Hands Chapter Master to get Eternal Warrior, you're able to. I mean, that's very strong. Yeah. You know, I know Dante's a Lord of War, but you know, we get some flack for being as high on him as we are, but
he's good.
I think he's a contender. He's a contender.
He's good, man. Like
swinging at a nit at that high strength does not suck.
Yeah, you know, how many people out there swing with AP2 at initiative that aren't like, you know, monstrous creatures, of course. You know, it's like him, Drago, and maybe one or two others. Like, there's not many.
Drago's not AP2. Drago's got his little AP3 sword.
I thought it was AP2.
No, he just beats on Terminators all day long.
No.
I'm pretty sure Drago's got an AP2 sword right now.
In this edition he does. I haven't used Dragon in forever. So that's the next thing you can check out.
Oh, I will check that so fast. Like I'm playing football, man.
So Justin, you've been experimenting a lot with the Cataphrons.
Okay, those things are so awesome. Everybody's talking about the grab shots coming out of the Skyhammer. Dead to me. Don't need it. These things are 165 points. You get your Flesh Terrors thing, you're spending no more than 300 points on your Flesh Terror detachment. Promise to you. It's not, unless you're really going out of your way to try. So you put
pots are 35 points, scouts are 50 points. You're 55 points. The priest is 60 points.
Yeah, so however many pods you want, that's going to scale up the price of that thing. So think about this. You put a priest with those dudes. Now they got Feel No Pain, right? Battle Brothers, gotta love it. So you feel no pain in these beasts because they only got it's a 4-up armor. So they need a little bit of survivability, but they're dropping down in that pod right where you want it. All those grab shots, and you could take as cheap as 2 with the Dominus in the Conclave, not expensive at all. The other dude, the Tech Priest Dominus guy, rides with the other squad, gives them Feel No Pain. So you're just dropping where you need to be, maximizing those shots out, way cheaper, way more point efficient. And there's other units that you can use out of that the Cult Mechanicus, but I think those are the best units in the game. Caveat to that is not the Cataphron Destroyers, but the Cataphron Breachers. When you take them in that formation, where it's the Tech Priest Dominus, and then 2 units of those.
Are you liking that though? Because that just seems like best shots.
It gets work done. It's cheap. They die. Don't expect them to sit there.
All this stuff does. You got to get it done. You are pretty much a glass cannon on units that don't have the priest.
Yeah. So you're dropping in. You're if you don't wipe out with the one volley, the sad thing is you need to wipe it out with the second thing. That sucks, especially if you only if there's not much left, but you really need it wiped out because that counter charge is what's going to kill you. But they're dishing out for 165 points, man. They are dishing out some hurt. I love them. I'm swearing by them.
Sorry, just got to cut you off. Thank you, Dean. Archangels and Space Wolf Death Star has been rocking house. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead. Continue as you were, Justin.
Yeah. No, don't sleep on them. You're going to see them too. I promise you. In major events and RTTs, you're going to start seeing these things. You got to keep in mind, Cult Mechanicus is still new. A lot of people haven't had time to play.
Those models aren't very easy to paint either. The troops are fine. That may be a slowdown getting things on the table, especially for a tournament setting.
Very intricate, very, very, very detailed models. But man, I'm telling you, don't sleep on them. Just look at them. Find yourself some 60 mil bases or 50 mil bases, whatever they come in. Proxy, play test with them, and you're going to thank me later. They are amazing.
You're going to see some at the ATC, especially that formation that gets all the free warrior.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're planning on that, you need to become very familiar with all the doctrines and that kind of stuff. That's really what it comes down to, is that they have ways, on paper, their stats are fairly tame, but they have ways of increased stats multiple different ways. You've got the Skitarii rules, and then the Canticles, the Omnisci rule out of the Cult Mechanicus. Yeah, I definitely suggest familiarizing yourself with that ATC, because you will see it on some of the top tables.
With that Warhost convocation, you get both benefits too. Like even the AdMech dudes are getting the Skitarii rules, and vice versa. So you're like layering more buffs across the table. It gets dirty with that. They do good by themselves, and that's how I'm running them. Just because I need time to build the whole Warhost. That's a slow process, but they do really good. But if you go against that Warhost, you have to be prepared that you're getting the factions buffs to other factions, which is huge.
The Canticles, the Omnisci, whenever it's there, that blows up that unit count to where it gives you the best reward possible when you use those things.
Yeah, and the Knight benefits from it too. So all that. It gets dirty quick. Free points and all those rules, it's dirty.
Well, I'm ready for you guys to beam me up now.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, then I'll hit Sonic's point. Go ahead.
Okay, so beam is a witchfire power. Yeah, it's the one where you draw a line. So you pick 1 point, 1 millimeter wide, and then 18 inches or however long it is that the range of the beam power is. Only one model can deny the witch against the beam power, but otherwise it is simply a witchfire psychic power. And also, Drago is a strength +3 AP2 sword.
That's what I thought.
AP2, okay. There you go. Thanks for both of those, knocking it out of the park. So Sonny Gab's saying that now the stereo of the Skyhammer is gone, or at least stated right now while we focus on other things. He's saying that he likes it because they now just get the fluff set coming in super hot and aggressive and instantly making an impact on the turn that they land.
I think that's exactly what Assault Marines need, is that sort of immediate impact, because as nice as it is to have a little bit more mobility on a power armored dude, being able to just go in and hit hard on that turn they arrive, one, it feels more authentic. It feels more Space Marine-y. It feels like you're playing, the Space Marine video game, where if you were in a jump pack, you were basically like a god of war, and you just come in, you hit them, especially with those Raven Guard chapter tactics, where you're getting the double jump pack usage in one turn, and you're hitting them hard, and you're able to get some work done on the table with them right from the beginning. You don't have to wait a turn to get shot up. You don't have to try and walk all the way across the table with them, which with the 12-inch move is easier, but it is still not great. I really like it. I don't think that it is as overpowered as people are claiming it to be, because there is something else in the game that can beat that.
Oh, many things can, and we'll see things evolve that people use that if they plan on encountering that. Dan's saying that he didn't think that the Knight benefited in that Adeptus Mechanicus war convocation. And I want to point out this in the first special rule is that all units in this formation have the Canticles of the Omnissiah special rule, even though they do not have the Cult Mechanicus faction. So that includes the Skitarii units and the Knight from the Oathsworn detachment that you have to take, which is one or more Knights. 1 to 3 Knights. So it's strong. It's good. I mean, these things are good, and we're going to continue to see this kind of stuff come out. And now, let me also kind of point on a segue just a tad bit, the tournaments that do allow or restrict how you build things. Most armies outside of the Imperium don't use multiple detachments or multiple sources. They'll use one book and they get it done out of that one book or whatever. It's the Imperium that we're really worried about limiting. What if we, instead of saying limiting the sources, we changed some stuff with Battle Brothers, and we talked about that in the past. But if, let's just say, if Space Wolves and Dark Angels were allies of convenience or whatever, then it changes how we build the army list. If Blood Angels and Cult Mechanicus were not Battle Brothers, that definitely changes how we're doing things. Yeah, so I mean, maybe instead of limiting what toys we play with, we get a little bit more narrative on folks. But I don't know that's the answer. I'm not even advocating that. I just want to put it out there that I'm calling it the Imperial soup is what most people are concerned about at this point.
All right, for competitive play, I think that's the wrong answer, and I'm happy to hear any arguments or counterpoints to that, because when you're looking at the game from a competitive perspective instead of a narrative perspective, let's take that Blood Angel example you just mentioned. Blood Angels and Mechanicum are in the fluff not on great terms. They just straight up don't like each other.
All over one tank. Like, come on, get over it.
And Land Raiders, apparently. I think they took a Forge World that makes Land Raiders.
Something like that. But, bottom line, in the fluff, that doesn't work out. But some ways to make Blood Angels more competitive in a competitive scene is to bring in some of those Battle Brother allies, whether you're looking at Codex Space Marines or you're looking at Cult Mechanicus.
I'm not saying cut out Battle Brothers in total. I'm just saying that maybe we slim it up, we make it make more sense with the Imperium. And I'm only playing devil's advocate at this point. Continue on. Your point is very valid.
Well, and that's just kind of the thing. If we pick and choose, I mean, there's some story, there's some narrative out there for any of the factions that will or will not get along in a certain setting. There is an unlimited amount of source material for us to draw from to make these kind of decisions if we're going to do it from a narrative perspective. There is no wrong answer. But so far as competitive play, if we want to see...
Horus Heresy ally chart that was just brought up in chat.
Yep, I actually really like that ally chart. I think that it's a pretty fair set, but that is also an inbuilt pretty fair kind of game, because you're dealing with a lot of power armor versus a lot of power armor, and then you have Mechanicus, and now you have the new with the new Horus Heresy 5 book that came out. You've got basically customizable planetary troops that you could make, like the Geno guys from Legion. You could make an all kind of Ogren looking thing. There's a lot of variety that's built into that now, but for the most part, this is Space Marines versus Space Marines. There's balance built in there anyways.
I want to talk about 30K here in a minute. Flashpoint to see a loose saying Type 3 all the way. Yeah, I'm a Type 3 player. No questions asked. I just wanted to put this out there for the people that are having a hard time shaking that whole 5th edition vibe off. I want to do as much as I can to bring them forward as the game moves forward. Not to me. It's where we're keeping up with.
I thought that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought the 6th edition one was pretty good though, because remember how Grey Knights across the whole spectrum was allies of convenience with all the Imperium,
and Necrons.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there was a few glaring issues, but as far as that one, I think that was the best entry level into it. I thought that they did a good job changing some of the things like Tau with Space Marines. That needed to happen. That was ridiculous. But it's a work in progress. When 8th edition comes in 3 months, we might get the better one.
We're not getting 8th edition in 3 months.
That was a joke. That was a good starting point. But I think that the idea of what people need to get their heads around is humanity as a race being a faction. Humanity will pick humanity before Xenos most of the time. People are, even speaking from a fluff perspective, humans are bred to hate and fear the Xenos. We will trust each other before we'll trust them, and the same goes for Eldar and Dark Eldar. As much as the morality compass may be pointed in different directions for them, they would still choose to be fighting next to Elves.
I think that you cut out Dark Eldar out of Eldar. That was completely and totally how to shoehorn these into our limited number of factions within the game choice.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a fluff choice at all.
You might be right, but I do think that there's a bit of racial elitism there. I'm not saying they should be Battle Brothers, but I'm saying it makes more sense for them to be Battle Brothers than for Eldar and Tau to be Battle Brothers.
We're not going to solve this issue, so I don't want to draw it out too much. But this is just something I want to put out there to make it to where maybe people can start to figure out what works for them in their environment. Flashpoint, good to see you.
I was totally solving that issue right then, and you just
Troy.
The train is gone.
You also.
You just moved on.
Everybody jumping in a little bit late. Better late than never. The more the merrier. Playing with these new Demi companies and that kind of stuff. There's been a lot of talk for people saying that they think that these Demi companies are going to win win-loss tournaments hands down. Because, and let me tell you, I'm not going to make any friends when I say this right now, is that list is boring. Most of those win-loss games are boring. It's the best boring list out there.
It's boring listening to you talk about them.
Yeah.
I was asleep just now, actually.
But we got a buddy who's taking 15, 16 drop pods to the ATC. I don't know if you heard us talking about in the last podcast, but we call them objective bullets. Just firing objective bullets, just down on this field or whatever. That list, if you don't care about every vet sergeant has to have a power fist, and I got to have maximum multi-guns, and I got to do whatever. If you just want to win games, those Demi companies are where it's at in the win-loss environment.
They're very strong. I've said it before. They have a lot of upside, and then they have some glaring weaknesses. The glaring weaknesses is they're generally weak. They're soft units. Rhinos.
I will tear your head off with any one of my Death Stars.
Yeah. Once you start daisy chaining some of these multi-charges and stuff like that, you're going to watch just an entire flank of an army just go, oh, where did it all go? You didn't realize that a Rhino and 5 Marines couldn't stand up to the might of a Death Star? Like, come on.
Or Wraith Knight, or, I mean, Baharoth is going to come over there and just top
Yeah.
defense. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mode for them to play, and they're going to be successful in certain types of formats. But overall, you need to make sure that you pay attention to the format that you're playing in, because you might have a feel-badsy day.
Yeah, and Lou's saying that they didn't necessarily dominate War Games Con, and that's true. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they don't have a lot of inherent power. Yeah. There is a little bit of, I mean, if you think you can win with 60 Ultramarines and a bunch of Rhinos or a bunch of Razorbacks, and the tournament lends itself to that, that's the thing you should play. Yeah. You know, but if you've got to actually do a lot of engagement, interaction, you know, being out and being durable, that's not where you want to be. But in these win-loss games, in win-loss games, you play a lot of KG, a lot of staying out of contact with people.
Yeah, sorry, that late game.
No, and that's one of the things that I really feel like people have been overreacting to, is some of this free stuff that you're getting in these formations that you're taking. Yeah, it's free, but it isn't doing much. You know, one twin-linked heavy bolter will kill 1 or 2 dudes a turn, depending on, you know, armor saves and whatnot, cover or whatever. But that one Razorback is not going to be, you know, winning the game for you.
I think the convocation is way stronger. It's the strongest free war gear thing we've seen so far.
By a long shot, too. And just even looking at the Rust Stalkers and the Infiltrators, they stand up so much better in that 5-man unit than a lot of other units that you see.
It's got a learning curve, though. It's got a bit of a learning curve. You've got to know when to use which power, and that's not always easy to determine.
It's going to shine in a good general's hand. It's going to play well in every player's hand, just because you're inherently having more points on the table.
Yeah.
But when you start going up against like somebody that really truly understands the game, the phases of the game, when to use certain things and when to do certain things, you're going to get steamrolled, and you're going to have a real feel-bad experience.
Yeah, Sean's saying that he had a feel-bad experience the first Adepticon he went to, you know, with some situations like maybe some internal things. Man, catch us next time. I'll be there next time. Let's hang out. Hopefully, turn that situation around. People may be getting some lag too. It's like a couple of folks are having lag. It seems like we're okay on this side. Hopefully
I've had a bit.
Clears up. All right, hopefully that clears up for everybody. You know, it's kind of at the whims of the internet. Gabriel's saying like a good towel list will annihilate a Demi company. That is very true. And it's kind of where we're going. Is that it's just I like nothing more. Like at round 1, I draw the guy that like has a bunch of, he's got a bunch of Rhinos and Razorbacks with dudes inside. I'm like, oh, thank you. I don't know. Just a good day shining upon me.
But again, like we said, keep in mind format.
It's very fluffy, and the format. Yeah, you're right. It's a great. I'm glad that we had that in the book. I'm glad that it exists.
Because I mean, I'm looking at it, and naturally, the first thing I think about is the people's missions. That's the most common missions that I play myself.
Yeah.
It does okay actually in the people's missions because it's a battle point mission. I can hide a Rhino. It's small. And I can get that objective and last a round or 2 on that objective before
on progressives. You know, what I like to do with progressive is things like that. I'll stack 2 Rhinos over there. Now you got to kill these 2 Rhinos, and you got to kill the 10 Marines. And that can't be done very easily.
Yeah, it's hard to put that amount of volume quality shot into a unit.
And let's think of this, too. In that formation, your Chapter Master is objective secured. So we're harshing on it, but there's some ways to really crank that power up on that.
It's good. It's format specific, I think, and I'm gonna leave it at that. It's format specific.
Got it. Can I talk about 30K here for a second?
I would love to talk about 30K for like the next 20 minutes.
Lewis, let me get this question in because I think this is important. He says, "What are our thoughts on the Iron Hands chapter tactic affecting things other than dreadnoughts, like the Rhinos and the Land Raiders and that kind of stuff?"
You're talking about the It Will Not Die?
Yeah, this is sticky, all right, because I think that we can all clearly figure out that the intent is to allow those vehicles to get the effect of that, but it's a chapter tactic, And in the first paragraph of chapter tactics, it says you don't get the benefits unless you have chapter tactics. And land raiders and rhinos and other vehicles outside of dreadnoughts don't have chapter tactics.
That's kind of the killer for me on that one. I really want that to be true. You guys know this. You guys know that I want to roll in with a bunch of tanks and some heavy metal music and really just blast people to death with my giant tread-headed madness. But with that specific wording, I imagine that this is something that will get FAQ'd. Just like I imagine the Dark Angels Raven Wing on the HQs is likely going to get an FAQ. But as it stands right now, unless you have that social contract with who you're playing, or the event specifically says in their FAQ that they're going to allow it, you're going to have a hard time convincing people to let you do it.
I think what happened is they did all this time changing the way chapter tactics was worded, so it would specifically prevent White Scars teaming up with Iron Hands and that kind of stuff, and they didn't consider this as the fallout.
They tried to kill Super Friends.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
All right. We'll show those cheeky guys.
So I got my feeling
he
is
said cheeky.
It should be able to be okay and do that. But then you run into things. You take the Land Raider formation that has no chapter tactics. Do I just get to call that Iron Hands?
Yeah. See, I think,
how do I determine that formation is Iron Hands?
Yeah, I think probably that's what they were thinking. I'm giving GW rules writers credit right now. Wow.
Well, I mean, I don't.
The formation itself, no. But I would say that you look at the unit entry to determine the chapter tactics because all of those formations are composed of units that have a faction assigned to them depending on what tactics you take, right?
Well, they're all Space Marine faction, but without a specific chapter tactic.
Well, okay,
I shouldn't say without a specific. They have no entry for chapter tactic at all.
Well, think about this then. So, say you're going on this line, the Land Raider formation. It's gonna be Iron Hands, and then move on to the Skyhammer. That's gonna be freaking Raven Guard or possibly.
Well, Skyhammer has chapter tactics. Those if you go to the special rules, the unit will list whether or not it has chapter tactics.
Well, my point is though, is you're creating this gigantic Skittles of thing, and maybe that's what they were trying to avoid, was being able to plug and play all these different things. I don't know. I
think we're thinking about it too hard. Honestly, I think we're thinking about it too hard, and we tend to do that because we want to make these things work, and we want to be able to back up our desire to make this thing work on the table, and to bring this to play the games at the events that we love to play. But sometimes I think we just kind of need to turn off the overthinker in all of us and realize this is probably okay.
Well, the short answer is that you can't. And yeah, I agree with you. It's probably okay until you do things like just these formations that don't have anybody in them that we could really determine. You are simply wishing them to be something, and that can create some weird, awkward situations. But I'm with you. I think we're going to see something where that gets taken care of. But I could be wrong. I could be completely off on the intent of where they were going. So 30K.
At the events, yeah. Just let me finish this out real fast because I want to talk about this too. But at events, where we're, especially one of our events where we're making that call, we are making that call realizing that the players will choose not to or will choose to come based on the decision we make until there's an official answer. So
yeah, truth. I played a 30K game this weekend. And the guy I was hanging out with just wanted to play a good game of 30K as a beautiful World Eaters army. Angron is a truck, all right. And I just kind of cobbled together some AdMech stuff. The points in that game go very quick, so even playing a 2,000 point list, you don't have a ton of figures on the table. I feel like you have less units than you do. Now, some of those units are 20 man strong or whatever, but you have less units than you do in 40K. And I think it creates a little bit more of a tactical game, in my opinion.
I'd agree with you there. I've done some list building in Battlescribe for Horus Heresy stuff because I've been trying to map out what I need to buy in order to get how I want to play when I first start, and the points fill up really quickly. That's one of the reasons I don't understand why 30k is banned at some of these events, is because you are really putting yourself in a handicap at 1850 building a 30k list.
Angron and Horus are no joke.
Oh man, those guys. Even Vulcan. I think Vulcan has great.
They're
rules.
all good. The primarks are good, but you are right. There's no reason to not, like, if somebody wants to come to your event and maybe they wouldn't have come otherwise, then there's no reason to not allow them. This whole kind of, I don't really agree with the excuse anymore that not everyone has access to the rules and so people aren't familiar. Now, let me say that is a real concern at events, but we're at a place in 40k right now where no one knows the 40k rules. So who cares if you have weaker, less rules coming in from a big Forge World hardback book or a 30k or whatever.
And even rules accessibility should never really be an excuse. And the reason I say that is because even from when I started playing 40k, if you go all the way back, it's 18 years ago, I didn't know what all of the books did all the time. I never walked into an event having every other book memorized. I think that if you go to an event with 30k, I mean, you have got to be on your game. You have got to, if you plan on bringing it with Eldar or Tau or whatever.
Do you mean playing 30k or playing against? Because playing against them is no big deal. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not hard. You may or may not win the game. I'm just saying that playing with it is not that bad at all.
No, it's not. You're not bringing some kind of epic cheese. I mean, a Bolter Marine in 30k is a Bolter Marine in 40k, except he lost and they shall know no fear. If anything, that's a detriment. There's
nothing worse than getting 20 Marines routed off the table for no reason. Well, apparently it's things you've never had a Marine run from.
Definitely, and that's one of the exciting things about it, because that makes you may have these big 20-man squads of Marines with bolters, but you got to be careful with them or they will run away.
I'm with you. It's so yes, we should see more of it, and if you're interested in play more of it, if you've got Marines at home as bodies or whatever, find somebody to show you what 30k is all about. It is it is a bit more of a tactical game, and it is a heck of a lot more balanced, if you can call it that, than 40k is right now. And so if that's your flavor, you got some Marines, get in there and mess around.
Yep. I mean, one of the ways that I've been preparing is I've been buying a bunch of the vehicles I can use in both games, and then all I'll need to do is just buy bodies.
Yeah. And they'll be nice looking bodies too, with all this new armor coming out.
Oh yeah.
Dan's saying that 30k is the hardest army builder game he's ever played. It really is, because there's slight different variations in the list in every book, and like if you're playing AdMech, it's almost impossible to sit down and just like, I'm just going to whip together an AdMech list. You gotta. I mean, that's what I was trying to do, and I did not make a very good one. But it was like I still had to really search for the rules.
Yeah.
Marines are a little bit more straightforward, and they put out those Marine, the Legion, like small books with just the rules in it, without all the fluff, and those are amazing.
Yeah, those are the ones I bought first.
Yeah. A lot of people, harp on like the Forge Rule books are kind of expensive. There's quality in that price. So I want that to get squashed right away. But if you really just want to play 40k or 30k and you don't care about the story and all that stuff, if you're like me, get those red books, man. They're awesome and they're very, very inexpensive.
I'll tell you, I care deeply about the story for Horus Heresy. I feel like that's the game that I've wanted to play ever since I read about it in my 3rd edition rulebook. Was the story of the Horus Heresy and the ramifications it has. I daydream about what Sanguinius is going to look like, and I daydream about slapping Horus around like a little pansy with Sanguinius.
Yeah, we're going to do a little history revision when when this gets out.
Forging that narrative, yo.
That's right. Oh man, but I dig the game, And Sonic Grab's saying that in Warhammer World they're standardizing the points at 1875. I think that would probably be to accommodate somebody's kind of pet list, but yeah, you can fit 5 knights into 1850, and I do think that 1850 is the best tournament point right now. Not the funnest, not the most fun, but the best. Like, limit how the game plays in your area based on points and missions. So I say this with all my heart. I think 1850 Forged narrative style missions is the most fun way to run a tournament. The most fun way to just beat people up and play the game, in my opinion, is probably at 2,000 points, just playing until every figure's gone.
Well, here's a question for you, Paul. All right, so I remember when we were talking about the seasonal last year, when I was messaging you on Facebook, we were talking about 30K and people bringing it to the Forged Narrative seasonal. You remember this conversation at all?
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about primarks and which primarks you can and can't bring, and you specifically said, no, you can't bring Horus. You had them follow that 25% rule. Now, are you still behind that now? And I'm interested to see what you say, because I have an opinion on this.
Yeah, it's tough. I try my best not to change when I'm running this type of tournament, I'm trying my best not to change anything, any rules, whatever. That's Age of Darkness. Also, you can't bring a Warhound Titan. That Legion Falchion or whatever is 405 points or something, so you can't fit it in 2,000 list or something. It's a little ridiculous.
Well, I just felt like, and I mentioned this to you at the time, and my opinion has only gotten more solid, that with how many points that these models take up, just like if you were to bring a Fellblade with your 40K list, with the amount of points that these soak up, that creates its own balance. I personally would push for any Primarch to be able to be part of a list at a seasonal event. I know that's not, I'm not writing the law here.
Every opinion matters. I mean, that's kind of thing. I don't disagree with you either. I mean, it's like when we announce the next one, and there will be one, it will be the social event, the most rockin'est 40K party you've ever seen, all under the class of some Southern hospitality, rolling in style. I'll say that. But with that out there, every opinion is going to matter, because we want to play the kind of 40K that most people want to play.
Or the kind of 30K.
Yeah, well, right. The kind of Warhammer sci-fi that people want to play.
Speaking of opinions that matter, we got the Peanut Gallery chiming in over here with Blood Angels are going to turn and going to cost 40K end times.
No.
Do I need to reach through this camera and strangle someone?
No. Somebody needs a live talk. That's all we're getting at. But 30K, I did enjoy the game. I rolled so poorly on my scatters. I could not get one of my plasma wave things to hit. So there's all these world eaters hiding behind a building or whatever, and I'm trying to drop these plasma bombs on them. And anyway, it didn't work out. But next time, whatever. I was using Dread Knights to proxy for my Thanatars.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean they're about the same size.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess to answer the question, I believe that 1850 with engaging missions is the best tournament style. But that may not be the most fun I've ever had in the game. I mean, I have fun in tournament games, but I think higher points, you get a little more toys, you can pull off a few more combos, and that starts at 2,000. You get a lot of crazier combos at 2,000 than you see at 1850. There's a excess of things you see at 2,000 that you don't necessarily see at 1850.
2,000 just lets you bring those extra toys that you cut out as part of your 1850 list, and that's where the fun comes in. Is that lets you really kind of open the toy box and get out those things that for budgetary reasons you decide that you can't really use at that level.
Part of we don't necessarily equate it this way, but part of the success you have at 40K is resource management, and points are a resource. And so anytime that you have to make those compromises, you have to, whoever does it the best and does the best of what their resources are is going to have an advantage in the game. And in 1850, that's at a point where most people get to play and feel comfortable and take their kind of fancy unit or whatever, but the real people that are trying to be efficient get in some impressive things, but they can't. The sky's not the limit. They don't have unlimited. It's still a more complex thing.
So Lamont's got a question where he can find the Fleshtower Strike Force. Did you guys get that while I was, Draxing it?
No, go ahead. I think it just came in soon.
That is in the Shield of Baal book, the Blood Angels one. It's the second book, Exterminatus, is where you can find the rules for that. So if you can find one in your game store, awesome. If not, you can download it off of iBooks.
Yep.
Hit us up at PM too, and we can square you away with the rules if you have trouble finding it. We can give you a word for word description of it. We have a copy.
So that formation is almost the only thing you're going to take out of that book, though. But it has everything. It's a formation that only has very limited buy-in requirements, but it opens up all the drop pods, and you can take a Lord of War.
Yeah.
That was something that the Dark Angels are really suffering for this time around. Is they don't have any of those natural formations with those rules that let them put that Lord of War slot in. I think that's probably the biggest disadvantage I've seen come out of that book.
Somebody hit us on Facebook on the back of our conversation with that. In the Secret Curian, you can take the named character detachment within that, and that gives you a Lord of War, or gives you at least Azrael.
Backdoor Club.
Specifically said Azrael in there. It's command something or the other.
Yeah, something in there. I don't know what the lion Curian, the secret Curian. I don't know,
the kitty Curian.
The kitty Curian.
Ooh.
That's what we're going with.
Until the lion wakes up from his catnap.
Oh man, and all these Demi companies, the Blood Angels had it first, and we don't get any of the treats.
We are the red armored stepchildren of this edition 40K.
Just think how cool it's going to be when it comes back around. We're gonna get it all.
Yo, Blood Angels did get an update in Age of Sigmar. Did you see those sanguinary guard upgrades?
Seriously, we don't have enough time to talk about that. But I mean,
I'm so buying into that.
It's like this fantasy is being better for the Blood Angels than the last Blood Angel 40K release.
Yeah.
It's a true story, man. And I'm so stoked for that stuff. I am definitely buying into it, even though I keep trying to talk myself out of it.
All my Grey Knights are gold. All right,
seriously.
I play gold Grey Knights, and if I can just, if that's the same as whatever their Balthasar gold or Shining gold is or whatever, that's one of the coats in the process. And if I could just get that, because their sprays are good. I used to use Mephisto on red and a bunch of Blood Angels, and that they've always said very good sprays in my opinion.
That's my jam. The black primer is the best black primer I've ever used.
I've used Army Painter. I used Army Painter in the past. I use Army Painter now for certain things. I prefer the Games Workshop colors. I like the variety of Army Painter, but I think the Games Workshop colors spray on for which the ones that you use better than the Army Painters.
Huh. For me, I just struggle doing the Rattle Can game. I'm scared of doing it because when I started Rattle Cannon, it was 98 cents from Walmart. And so I have hair coming off of my models. You
can screw up and you can have a bad day. It doesn't take much to be like, well, I guess that dude doesn't have a face anymore. Now it's just a red mass.
He's Nurgle now.
Yeah. Lou's bringing us the AdMech don't have a red book yet. I don't know why not either. It seems like they could easily reprint those and make money off of that. Please do. I want them to do it because
I'm sure.
I think that they will. I'm pretty sure that they will. I think they're waiting to flesh out a couple more new units before they devote a whole book to it. Just because, do you have the red books, Paul?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so each of the two red books has just a lot of stuff in it. You've got a lot of tanks. You've got a lot of infantry. There's a lot of different options.
So well done. It's so nice.
Yeah, and AdMech just doesn't have that kind of volume yet to create that kind of hardbound book experience, which is what I think they're trying to do with all the Heresy stuff. So I think it's coming. I just think that they need to flesh out the range a little bit more for straight AdMech.
When Book 6 drops for the hardback version, I guarantee you're going to see your third red book.
Could be. Yeah, and they've already kind of announced we're unfortunately on the back burner before we get any real love from our team. Soon. I'm patient. I'm a patient person. I know they're going to be great.
I'm not.
Well, guys, we're here at the end of the hour. Anybody else got anything they want to add before we get out of here?
Blood for the Blood Angels.
There you go.
Thanks for joining us again, guys. It's always fun.
Makes our Monday nights fun.
Adam's a filthy heretic.
Yeah. So I apologize for getting to everyone's question in the chat. Please hit us on Facebook. We'll be talking about some of the stuff on the podcast. Hit me on Twitter. These guys are on Twitter also. It's been a real fun chat. Have a good night, everybody.
I am on Twitter.
I know. I just said that. Yeah. Good night, everybody.